Straight up, man. And Kings to King of Pop, man. MJ, you know what I'm saying? Love, man. Straight up.
Oh, brother, I want to just throw something else in right there.
All the time.
Because we were talking about Sandra Bland and no one being indicted. And I saw this story pop up again that I had seen a while back, and it's regarding George Stinney, Stinney, George Stinney Jr. And it says back in 1944, it only took an all-white jury 10 minutes to convict 14-year-old George Stinney Jr. But it has taken a full 70 years since he was convicted and executed for him to finally be exonerated of crimes that he never committed. A 14-year-old kid,
wow.
He was electrocuted. He was so small that they had to put books in the chair so that
wow.
he could be, propped up to the mechanism that they placed on his head, and that was too big for him. So they had to make all of these adjustments just so that they could execute this 14-year-old young Hebrew brother, man. And now 70 years later, he's exonerated from crimes that he never committed. And this is my thing, man. It's like they don't want us to forget. They don't want us to forget. They're going to bring us back 70 years later. And then, as well, Sandra Bland not having anybody indicted in her murder. And I'm feeling like 70 years later, it's going to come up like, oh, blah, 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 has been indicted in Sandra Bland's murder, But it's like, oh, yeah, 70 years later, she's not here with us anymore. She didn't get to leave a legacy. She didn't get to, bear fruit. She didn't get to give us young Hebrews that she eventually, I'm sure, would have taught the truth. So that's an opportunity taken away from our nation. But you're going to tell us 70 years later, oh, we made a mistake. So all that lineage, all that heritage that fell in between, just don't worry about it. Go ahead. Forget about it.
They want us to forget. Cool, they want us to forget about all that genocide, all that massacre. They want to, forget that we, put your family in big frying pans just because they didn't want to eat pork. And we enjoyed seeing each and every one of the children go into the frying pan and laugh about it while we feasted our abominable feast. And we tried to feed your families swine as we were feasting. I mean, a room full of people. And the main attraction was that, oh, these Hebrews, they don't eat swine. Well, look, if you want to see your son go into the frying pan, if you don't want to see that, then eat this swine. And you can read about these stories in Maccabee. Straight up, this is your history. We should forget about that, but remember the Holocaust. But don't remember these Holocausts. Remember this Holocaust. Don't remember the massacre that was done to your indigenous, quote-unquote, Indian, quote-unquote, Israelite family. And all your family all across the plain, every continent, everything. We were all scattered and affected in atrocities that we're supposed to just forget. But remember 9/11. America never forgets. But forget what we've done. You know what I'm saying? Forget what we're doing. Forget that in the other parts of the world, it's not called transatlantic slave trade. It's not called slave trade. It's called Christian slave trade. That's what it's referred to in other parts of the world. Christian slave trade. Because in the name of Christianity, that was the God. It was Jesus, man. It was, hey guys. Oh, nice
over here.
nice palaces. Nice. You guys look great. You guys are beautiful. Hey, by the way, here's a New Testament. You know what I'm saying? You might not have seen this before, but trust me, it's awesome. And it's this great cross. Here's the cross. And if you don't do it, we'll kill you. But we're going to kill you anyway. So first, the pilgrims come, right? And then the colonizers. But it's all a part of the psyche. First, they got to separate you from your God. They got to separate you from your energy. Don't you understand? They've been affecting your frequency with 440 hertz for a long time. They had to disconnect you from your source, they had to unplug you. Then they massacred you. And then they ate you. Because they couldn't grow food because the land didn't produce for them. They were going through famine. And they had to eat you. They were eating each other, and they were cannibals. These research pilgrims. Just put in pilgrims, cannibals, and you'll understand what I'm saying. Thanksgiving, they were feasting on you. This is what we're talking about here. So we walk in America as Americans, as Aboriginals, and you're dealing with an energy and the descendants of those colonizers, of those pilgrims, of whatever you want to call it. That's who's over here calling themselves American. That's why they don't call themselves European anymore. Why not? Just like we want to be African so bad, how come these descendants of Europeans can't call themselves Europeans? Why aren't they proud to say, I'm European, I'm from Poland? They have to claim American. We're patriots. We do anything. The forefathers of America. We need to get back to our Constitution. You got these Alex Joneses. We need to get back to the founders, the Constitution. They're taking away our constitutional rights. The constitutional rights took away the law of the land. We're not a part of the constitutional rights. That 3/5 refers to the Southern vote. And they needed the 3/5, 3 out of 5 slaves to get that extra vote. And that's why the Southern folks had all the power. And they had to abolish slavery to even the playing field of the votes and the power that was in the South. It wasn't about freeing you. This is stories. These are fables. You know what I'm saying? But let's get back to the drop. My brother Silas, I know you got a lot of drop. I'm following your lead, King. Wherever you want to go with it, man. Let's rock it.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll kind of start from the basics of it from the beginning. I'll just read this brief article from thinkprogress.org, and it says the worst cases of police brutality in September. So it says, during the first week of September, police killed more civilians than the total number of police officers killed so far this year.
Wow.
By the end of the month, 99 people were killed, according to the Killed by the Police database. At least 77 of them were shot and killed. The Guardian reports that 873 people have been killed by police since 2015, and the number is growing. So this article was written October the 1st, so this was, a couple of months ago. And it says these numbers present a counter narrative to the war on cops, messaging that conservative politicians and commentators have ramped up in response to the Black Lives Matter movement. As Radley Balco wrote in a Washington Post column, this rhetoric is damaging and hinders real public discussion about the use of police force. In the midst of the media hype over the attacks on police earlier this month, an unidentified Massachusetts officer was fired for fabricating the story about shots being fired at his vehicle, causing an hours-long manhunt for his attacker. And again, Ron Divine, our brother Ron Divine, Prospect, mentioned something that it's no longer police brutality, it's police terrorism now, because, your life is in danger, and that's how we have to look at it. And there's another site called killedbypolice.net, where as of, since January 1st up until last night, Christmas Eve, 1,178 people have been killed by police. And that's up until last night. So there were 2 people killed last night on Christmas Eve. There was 1 killed the day before that. The day before that, there were 6 people killed. And it's got the people's names, what city they're in. Really good information here as far as staying current on, police homicides.
Can you repeat that? Can you repeat the website, my bro?
Sure, it's called killedbypolice.net.
There it is. Research it, family. That's the drop.